Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Hey, who went to the party last night? And then who went to the after party last night? And then who went to the after party last night? If you ever find yourself at Denny's after the after party and realize that you have to get up and speak the next day, I'd recommend Rockstar Energy Drink. It does a wonderful job. Hey, my name is Damon Hoagland. I'm the GM of Identity and Informatics for X.commerce. I work in partnership with PayPal Access. You know how sometimes you go to conferences and you get to that session and it's just a big marketing show of the company's products that they want to push on you? Well, this presentation won't be like that other than the first 4 slides. So I'm going to give you a quick little overview of our product, but then I'm going to hand things over here to John, well known within the identity industry, to let him give you a really good technical presentation. So, overview of the 4 things we're really wanting to talk about today from a product release point of view. We released PayPal Access. It's an OpenID implementation out there. It's focused on really 2 use cases, sign up as well as sign in. If you don't want to integrate with OpenID, we also have a simple PHP integration that's not quite cut and paste, but it does make things easy for you in terms of putting things in the PHP session for you, etc. And then we have a Magento Community Edition extension as well. You can visit x.com/identity to integrate. We want to be real open with some of the features we're still working on for the product. Because of a security restriction right now, if you log into a site with the PayPal Access and then later on inside that session decide to go to a checkout flow, we are going to prompt you for another set of credentials to make sure that you are who you say you are in terms of moving the money. Our plans are to lift that restriction slowly starting in January, so we're working towards that. We know that that would be a much better user experience, but just want to be real clear as where the product is today. We also are releasing a OAuth 2.0 beta implementation. It's really beta for the main reason that we haven't highly customized it for mobile. And in addition, it only supports the PayPal email address and password. It doesn't yet support the mobile phone number and PIN yet. But we think it could be good for some use cases. We're really more than anything looking for feedback and how to make it into a better product. Again, you can go to x.com/identity to find out more. 3rd out of 4 slides, I'm almost done here. We're releasing a Magento recommendation widget, and it's a little bit complex in how it works, but the idea is that once somebody's put something in your cart on your Magento site, it would be really good to upsell them other items that would go with the item they've put in their cart. Well, we've taken the eBay engine that does that merchandising option and made it available for free for Magento implementations. So basically what it does is it takes a look at your inventory. When somebody puts something in your cart, they use the eBay algorithm to say what's the best thing to suggest that most likely would be the most viable thing for that person to purchase. So that's free and available today. And then finally, we're wanting a lot of feedback. We're just now coming out of beta with these products, and some of them are still in beta. We'd love to get feedback in terms of going to paypal-access.com. You could win some Bose QC15 headphones if you tell us a little bit about the product. And if you go by the booth as well, we have some new experiences we're working on, and we really want feedback on that as well. We also have a great t-shirt that we're offering today. It says, I integrated PayPal Access and all I got was this stupid t-shirt, as well as access to 100 million active verified consumers. So with that, I'm glad to talk to other people about the product after the session, but let's get to technology. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Damon. So I'm Jonathan LeBlanc. I'm a developer evangelist with X.commerce. And in the several months that I've been at X.commerce, as well as 3.5 to 4 years before that, I was a partner integration specialist focusing on open source implementations of OpenID, OAuth, OpenSocial, anything in the open and social world. So I've been working with hundreds of partners on integrating them with OpenID and OAuth. So when I've been talking with the information team and really exploring this technology, I see it as something revolutionary in the space. And hopefully you'll get the same sense from this talk today and really see all the valuable information that you can get from OpenID. So the one thing I want to say is that OpenID, or any open source identity system in its current form for e-commerce, is a complete failure. We don't have a solution out there that bridges the gap between your social integration, so let's say implementing OpenID for Yahoo or for Google, and really give you the wealth of information that makes it viable at all for the e-commerce space. Any sort of commerce implementation, the current implementations of OpenID just falter. And it's not the spec's fault. It's not OpenID that's the problem, because the spec is well-versed in everything that you can integrate with, all this great amount of information. It's not that at all. It's the implementations that give you this kind of substandard implementation of identity, only giving you a short piece of information that says, basically, yes, I have an account, and maybe a public badge, but how is that even useful in the commerce space? How can you use that to really give your marketplace any value or to add to the consumer value? So that's what we're going to look at today in the e-commerce identity system that X.commerce is releasing. We're going to take a look at what the current problems in the industry are, why we even needed to build a product in this space. Then we're looking at why what we're trying to do to improve the space and fix those core problems when it comes to the e-commerce world. I'll show you exactly where we are currently with our implementations, and so you can see what you can play with today, because I know you'll probably all go and take a look at this afterwards if you are implementers, just to see what we have available. And then, obviously, we're not going to have every baked-in piece ready today, but in the coming quarters, you're going to see amazing rollouts in the space. You're going to see brand new implementations built into this OpenID implementation and these OAuth 2 structures. And then we'll give you a little bit of final information at the end. Also, we'll be doing a giveaway today, so I'll be doing that at the end of the session, so I'll force all of you to stick around until the end. So first, let's take a look at what is available in OpenID as it currently is, and what the problems are in the space when it comes to commerce. First, we're going to take a look at OpenID. Obviously, they're one of the hugest players in the open source identity world. You might have seen their implementation with providers like Yahoo, being able to log into some external site with your Yahoo or your Google account. But really, some of the problems in that space are that there's an incredible lack of significant data that's provided. So let's say you're logging in. Now, if you're a developer building products on top of an OpenID system with those type of login structures, you're going to get information like a unique URI about the user saying, yes, this person does have an account, and here's some basic public badge information that you can find anywhere on the web. But when you start looking at it in the commerce space, you're really not sure, is this person a real identity, or is it just a real name? I was having a chat with some former colleagues at lunch, and we were talking about the difference between real identity in a social space like Facebook and real identity in the commerce space. And what we were saying was that Facebook, even though they push the real identity aspect, it's still what you perceive yourself to be in the real world. Your real identity, what you want to show. When you get into a commerce space, you tie in information like your address information, your bank account information, your payment history. All this information brings back to your real identity. This is something that you can't change. These are real facts, not your perceived facts. So there definitely is a difference in the space. And realistically, the OpenID implementation simply defines an account state, whether you have an account, besides the public badge information. So really not that useful. So let's take a look at some hard facts here. Now, these are ones that I've seen time and time again in implementations. Let's look at these. 23% of consumers abandon carts when they're asked to register. I'm guilty of this all the time. And so, okay, if I have a product that I really have been searching for and found it in one place, I'm going to buy it no matter what. But if I buy something on a whim, I find a book and I say, oh, let's buy this. And I go through an express checkout experience, and I get this big, extensive registration form and all my address information. I start to think to myself, do I really need this? And that's the worst possible thing you want your customers thinking about, is, do I really want your product? You can be leveraging off of 23% more users buying products. That's a significant amount. And then look at this one. 45% left the site when they couldn't remember their password. I'm guilty of this one too. I'm a really bad commerce person. Yeah, I leave off of any sort of problem. So the faster, the easier I can get through the checkout process, the better. So really look at this. You have so many social accounts. You have so many email addresses, so many logins. With OpenID, you bring that down to a single login structure that you can push out to all your commerce spaces. Remembering just a single login structure. So it makes your commerce experience much easier. Then, another big one in this space. Man, I worked with a lot of partners in OAuth integrations, OAuth 1.0a. 1.0, then the A revision. And it was very difficult to implement because all the signing mechanisms were on the side of the person implementing. So it was actually an extensive integration unless you were using a software development kit by the company that implements it. I had this one partner probably about 2 years ago. I won't mention the name, but what happened was I was working with their OAuth implementation. We didn't have an SDK available for them so that they could easily go through the OAuth process. And they were a .NET shop. So what they did was they downloaded the OAuth 1.0a library that was available at the time, and they implemented their own implementation of OAuth, trying to get through our process in order to get all the way to the end where they can get profile information. But by the time they did that, 2 weeks had gone by. We were going through daily stand-ups where we'd go through their code. We would try to help them through signature issues, all the same stuff that a lot of people who have implemented OAuth 1 are very familiar with. And it was so problematic. So when I actually started working with the identity team and asked them, are you implementing OAuth 1? Please, please, please no. And they told me they were implementing OAuth 2. I was like, thank God. Because the first time I implemented OAuth 2 was with Facebook, Koala, and Google. So they had their OAuth 2 implementations. And on the first integration I did with Facebook, I was reading through the documentation. And within 15 minutes, as I was reading through, I had an OAuth 2 implementation ready. It's an incredibly easy system. But the problem that came from OAuth 2 is in companies like Facebook, who use it for both authentication, which is traditionally identifying a user, OpenID, and authorization. So let's say you're going to an app and you authorize that app to access your details and do things on your behalf without always having to say, yes, you can do this. So that's what OAuth and OpenID used to be standard. So what you're seeing now with Facebook implementations is since they are traditionally logging in to an app structure, they don't need to have this differentiation. Easy login flow, but it gets really problematic and tricky because in the commerce world, you might want to identify yourself and give some base information, but you do not necessarily want people to have access to your account and modify any details about yourself or what have you. So there needs to be a differentiation between these, a true marriage of the technology. All right, so let's take a look at how we're planning on making changes in this space, how we're trying to change the face of identification to more of a commerce-based approach, which is ideally what we want in our storefronts. So again, we go back to good old OpenID. So the problems in the space, as we've covered, are that identity provides very little information to you. What you need in a marketplace experience is, ideally, if you identify a user, you want to have information like their address information or their real name, any sort of identifying information that you can use to pre-fill things like registration forms or checkout forms. Make it easier for the user to be identified on your site and pushed through the product sales. So we need to take a good look at this and see how we can fix it. And then most of the implementations out there that I've seen and really worked with for the most level, now this is definitely not true in all instances, but most do not have these extensive additional levels of security built in. You have implementations like Google where you can bind your token to your phone and use your phone as a two-factor auth. But for the most part, security is not really taken a look at. And the commerce space needs to be different. And obviously, identity in the current implementation is not geared towards the e-commerce world. It's geared towards the social world, which is great for the social world. It's an amazing technology for that. But unfortunately, it sucks for commerce. I think I heard once that someone had said, OpenID is the most successful failure. And that's because of this lack of information. You can't get a ton of information that's usable. And that's what we need to fix. So how are we going to do that? We have a few of the mechanisms in place that we're going to implement in order to allow you to actually access this information and make identity useful and make the merchant experience useful and valuable for you. So we have the privacy protection and the user identity through OpenID. We have the control mechanisms and the ability to create applications like recommendation systems or share systems on top of merchant accounts through the application infrastructure of OAuth 2. Then we have this mechanism, thanks to the rich amount of data of PayPal, that allows you to define user trust ratings. So what's a trust rating? Well, think of it like this. It's the credit score of identity, where we can leverage off of all the wealth of information of PayPal in order to define a numerical rating which shows how well you should trust someone. So how many of you have used eBay or seen eBay at some point? Oh, I know there's more hands than that. Okay, I'm going to count most of you. So when you go to a seller, you see that when you go there, you see their trust rating. You see basically how well they've done as a salesperson, how well they marketed themselves, how well they've sent other products, et cetera, et cetera. Think of it like the same thing. You're leveraging off of a trust rating. That's what we're trying to build off of. Then we have definitely the support for mobile. So let's face it. Mobile phones, in whatever iteration they come in, are a valuable merchant tool. This is something that can help you find products. It can help you buy products. You have a mobile marketplace in your pocket at any given time. So why wouldn't we integrate the OAuth support, the application support, the identity support into the mobile devices? So this is an area that we need to explore, that we're exploring, that we're building towards. And really what it comes down to, you've talked about the merchant value, really, how good it is for implementers, for people who are buying products. But on the developer value, if you're building products, there's also a huge amount of information that you can leverage off of. And really a good selling point as to why you should be using it. Using historical data from PayPal, 4 years of data, you can pull the real user history report of their buying experiences. Of course, the user would have to grant permission to do so through the application experience. So building off of real history, real identity, real payment history. Then utilizing that information to build that trust rating so that you know how trustful the merchant is, or or if they've had problems in the past, or for the users that log in, getting information like that is very valuable in the merchant experience. Then building those integrated payment systems directly into the identity system. So if you're always identified on a site, we already have your identity. Why would we ever ask you to register for anything? Why would we ever have to ask you for your username and password when you've already signed in? There's no point in doing that. And this is a problem in a lot of merchants' experiences. They allow you to tie your multiple OpenID accounts together, but they don't allow you to really gain the benefits of that identification. And then, simply put, the entire technology stack behind this is just in place to make it easier for people to buy from you, to buy from your store. Okay, let's look at some hard numbers, because I'm giving fluffy facts here, so I'm going to give you some hard numbers here on what we're leveraging off of. 100 million active verified consumers. It's a lot of consumers, a lot of people with those PayPal accounts that you could leverage off of. 45 million events processed per day. Then 600 million credit cards and email addresses. Again, real user identity. Okay, let's see what we can play with in this space right now. I've gone through problems in the space, how we're trying to fix it. So let me show you the progress that has been made. Of course, all of this is coming from a lot of the feedback from the users of PayPal, what they wanted to see in identity systems. This is where the entire system comes from listening to our consumers. So we have an OpenID mechanism for doing authentication, for logging in, and for allowing you to sign in to the commerce identity experience. So being able to provide your information, your identity information, to any sort of merchant or any sort of application. Then the OAuth 2 implementation for allowing you to build permissioned applications. So these are those recommendation engines. These are those share widgets, or basically whatever you can think of that you can leverage off of the user's data for. And those are more permission. Think of them like going to Facebook and adding an application. You have to actually accept the permissions. And that's the same type of context in the OAuth 2 world. So let's go and break down what the pieces of OpenID are, what we're really supporting. What we have are a series of the OpenID extensions that we support. Besides the identity system, we support simple registration. What simple registration is going to give you is simple user information. Think of it like a public badge. You know when you go to a site and it's your social site and it gives you some basic user information, like a nickname or primary network or something like that? That's what simple registration is. Think of it like your public badge. Then we have attribute exchange. Attribute exchange is a very much more extensive version of simple registration. Gives you that basic information, but more details like your address information. And it keeps going on and on. We supply a great amount of user information that can all be used to speed up the checkout process, to make it easier for people to register, even bypassing the registration process completely. Now, at this point, you might be asking yourself why we support both simple registration and attribute exchange, because attribute exchange can really do what simple registration can do, plus some. Simple fact is we had a partner or a series of partners that only supported simple registration. So we decided to support both to give them what they needed, the basic user identity, and then extended that with the attribute exchange so that everyone can leverage off of a gross amount of user data. And then finally, the security aspects are the PAPE policies. These are going to allow you to do multi-factor auth, so using hardware tokens as well as username and password, things like that, so that you can have a real secure system, so that you could use your cell phone, your laptop for identifying yourself. This is really where we're pushing the space. Now, I mentioned that giveaway. What we're going to have is a copy of my book. It came out about a month and a half ago. I'll be giving that out to someone at the end of the session. I'll ask a question on OpenID extensions. First person to answer it, and I'll work my way back, will get the book. All right. Well, so we'll wait till the end of the session to go over that. So let's see what we have available in a quick little demo. For those of you who implement OpenID, that's the discovery endpoint that you're going to be leveraging off of. And don't worry about writing it down. If you do, I have a link to the slides at the end. So let's jump over and see what we've got. That one. All right. So this is my little pet store example. I have a pet store. I'm offering products. Now, I can buy products online, and traditionally what I would have to do, let's say if I had a shopping cart experience, if I click on my items, I would have to register. Then after I register, I would have to fill out address information, shipping information, all that fun stuff that I filled out 500 times before. But Now we can have this PayPal access button, which would allow us to jump over to, oh, live demos, I love you. Oh, it just worked. Yeah, that's what I always tell myself. Let's go with this. All right. Remember in Peter Pan when they said something like, I believe, and then they could fly? Let's do that.
I believe, John.
Woohoo! All right, so this experience is popping the user to a new browser window, and this can also be done in context. So if you want to load this through a pop-up, that can also be done as well. And what it's going to do is say, log into PayPal, and say, do you want to log in as myself? And yes, I would like to do that. What it's going to do is pop you back to the store. I am now identified on the site. Behind the scenes, what has happened is I have sucked down all my user data that I have loaded up in my PayPal account. Now, in that same registration, if I go click on that, I can pre-fill all my data. Now, okay, this is a very simple example, but think of the impact this would have. If a user has to register, those 23% of users that have to register that drop off, why would you even need to do this registration? You have their information. Build a registration. Just create a user account. Give them, here's your user account. If you want to do that, or you pre-fill the forms. Make it simple like this. Do the same thing with address information. Very quick, very easy. Push people through as quickly as possible to get their user identity. So even though we would love you to check out with PayPal as well, we don't require that. Commerce Identity is all about building identity systems off of PayPal. You can leverage off of all that user information if you want to check out with a credit card here or through the merchant experience. You could do it through PayPal. It's all right there for you. We give you all the tools that you need to build a commerce experience. All right, let's jump back over to lovely presentation and go into the next step. OAuth implementation. So what we have for our applications is a simple OAuth 2 integration, allowing you to build those permissioned apps. Those apps that you see like upsell widgets within a marketplace. All of these things that bring value to the user identity. Permissioned applications, so those are going to be just the users going through the process, and we'll have to permission these applications so that they can access their data on your behalf. And then ideally what you're looking at here is enhancing the e-commerce experience with widgets, whether they be social, whether they be conversion widgets or upsell widgets or what have you. Whatever needs to be done in order to enhance the e-commerce experience, extend your social graph to multiple social channels. It doesn't matter. You can pull in more users this way. You can get more sales this way using the identity system that's based off of commerce. If you want more information, as Damon mentioned, PayPal-access.com. That's where you'll find a wealth of information as well as that little contest on OAuth 2, on OpenID, and really on the identity system. All right, now let's take a look at what our next steps are going to be in this space, what we want to do in the coming months, and later on, what we've heard from the community and why they want commerce identity and what they want to use it for. So we're going to ask ourselves a couple of questions in this space. First, how do we ensure that the user is always identified on the system? How can we leverage off of that to really be valuable? Then, how can we make the checkout process much easier using that same identity system? So we saw in that simple demo, you could pre-fill all that registration information, making the experience a lot easier. But we want to extend upon that, make it even simpler by cutting out things like the sign-on experience. If you want to log out with PayPal, you're already identified with PayPal. Why would you want to log in again? Why would you need to, right? So why can't we create a simple, single experience for checking out? Single page, display that, and allow you to have this easy checkout system. Then, can we use that identity system to extend upon the social architecture? So extend your reach out to different sources and draw more users back. Engage with more people in the space and get more renown for your products. And then obviously, we want to build enhancement widgets to create that socialized experience and really allow people to be on the same level. So bring those mom and pop shops that might not be able to utilize all these mechanisms or have the knowledge to build all these mechanisms, put them on the same level with those big box stores. Everybody's an equal in this space because e-commerce identity gives you all that information. And through the OAuth 2 integration, it gives you that seamless experience. Now, the user is always identified. And if you're interested in where Waldo is, he's on the building, the roof of the building across from SF MoMA. Took me a while to find that bugger. But he's right there. So, identity systems, and Waldo is an ideal case for this. User being always identified, just think of the possibilities that you could do with this. You have a user and his payment information, their identity systems. All that information is at your fingertips when you're doing the checkout experience. When you can leverage off of data like, let's say, not only their payment history, but their trends, so their habits, what they tend to buy. So if a person is interested in fashion, tends to buy fashion, you can pull out a recommendation system that promotes fashion to them, increasing your sales overall. With that identity information and a real identity information, not that perceived identity, you have a wealth of information in your hands. Then, the one-click payment experience. We're all familiar with this form. If you've used PayPal before, enter in your username and password. Then you get your payment experience and saying yes, and then going back, and then finishing off the flow in the merchant experience. But the user's already identified. We already have all their information. Why do we need to do this? Why can't we just display where we're shipping it and their final information and be done with it? Quick experience, quick ability to buy products, so that those users don't have to ask themselves when they're buying something on a whim, why do I really need this? And I don't really want to go through this registration process. So aiming it for people like me, the finicky people that don't want to fill out information time and time again. This is why I love OpenID, because I don't have to fill out that information time and time again. Then, using the identity system to do things like pre-filling forms. We saw this with the experience where you could just simply populate the user's registration information, or in this case, the address information, to really push those users through very quickly. Now, this is something that we want to explore and enhance upon because widgets like this are just valuable for everyone. The faster you get the users through, the more money you can make, and the more people are happy. And no one wants to fill out those forms. And then we're really asking ourselves questions here, a lot of questions, around building off that purchasing history. So what can you do? You can build that trust rating. You can use the purchasing history to see what a user's trends are and see what how they've been as a consumer or a merchant. Really just pulling off this vast array of details and identifying the user on a very core level. Because when you're dealing with the user's bank account, you're dealing with the user's payments, this is not something that they can change. This is not a perceived identity. This is their real identity, their real actions in the space. And this is what you want. Then, finally, social integration. Let's look at Groupon and Living Social, for instance. They have some really great mechanisms for sharing. You can buy products for people. Let's say buy products for friends, buy products as a gift. You can share those products with people that are interested in it. In some cases, if you share to friends and you recommend them, you get your product for free. These sharing mechanisms increase sales to an incredible degree. So why wouldn't you want to integrate your social experience directly into the identity or your merchant experience through things like recommendation systems, which the identity team is working on? Social container integration, so things like pushing out to Facebook or Twitter or any of your social media channels. As you've heard in the keynotes, the view of your online world and your offline world are becoming very blurred. So we're dealing with real identity here, but we also have that social identity. Why wouldn't we want to leverage off of that to extend our reach out to new customers? And then building those share mechanisms to allow you to do things like Groupon or Living Social, where you can send those contacts out to friends, out to family, or what have you. Those sharing mechanisms will increase the reach of any merchant experience. All right, so now let's just finish up really quick and just tell you that if you want to explore more about the developer products, or really what we're trying to do in this space, do with X.commerce, you can go to the developer sites, x.com/developers. If you're interested in any of the information presented on these slides, here's the information for Damon and myself, and you can download the slides from my SlideShare account at any time. And now I'd like to, I'd like to invite Damon up. Yep, come on up. And I'm going to go ahead and give away the book before we take on questions. So the first person that can tell me, there's one extension within OpenID that allows the marriage of OpenID and OAuth. Can someone tell me what that extension is? Okay, we're going to give it away to the first person that... Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the first question here. I think you had your hand up first, right?
Just a quick question about how's that accounts? Is this upgraded for the accounts?
So let's give the book away, and then we'll answer
we'll answer the question next. So, yes, so I think this gentleman might have had the answer.
I think it's the policy authentication extension. Policy authentication provider extension?
It is not, but since there's no other people in the room and you ventured a guess...
Can I get 2 chapters of the book for trying?
Yeah. Okay, so there is... because I'm very verbose and wordy in the book, they've actually pulled out chapter 12 on me and offered it as a free ebook download. So there you go. That's available. Yes, gentleman here.
Can we actually answer the first question, and I'll repeat it here, is, based on this new capability, what about adaptive accounts, which is an API that's provided by PayPal? So it would work with adaptive accounts, but it works independently. So adaptive accounts is a way to easily get people to sign up for a new PayPal account, and you can use that as an API to get users to sign up for PayPal on your site. Or you could actually use the identity integration, which has a flow in it as well, to sign up for a user account if you don't have one. The flow is very similar between the two in terms of creating an account, but they can work completely independently, or you can use them together. So let's go to the next question.
So
I
think you might be referring to the OAuth 2.0 specification of grant type equals assertion to consume assertions such as SAML or OpenID inside an OAuth flow.
So the one I was actually looking for was the OAuth OpenID hybrid extension, which is available as a currently underdeveloped solution. It's been integrated into a couple of contexts. I believe Google and Yahoo have both integrated it, but that's the closest one, so please feel free to come up. Here's the prize.
Just so everyone knows, I, of course, knew that answer, and I was ready to supply it. So. Certainly. We are taking questions via Twitter. Use hashtag XCOM with 2 M's 1. That's hash XCOMM1.
So hi, my name is Sylvan. I have a quick question around data protection. So first, let me say I love this, but still I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here. So if you go to Europe, for example, Facebook is taking a lot of heat for sharing the perceived identity. So now we're starting to share actual information. So this might have some backdraft. In some countries like Germany, people are getting sued by the government for using the like button. So what's your view on this in general? What's our strategy to tackle this?
Well, I mean, today we want to be huge consumer privacy advocates. So the way the product works today is before we ever share any information at all about you, there's an explicit form that lists the information. It doesn't list the categories of information. It lists the actual information we would share and asks for you to click allow. And then you could at any time go back to PayPal, log in, and take that access away. So the idea is that, this information really belongs to that consumer, and that consumer has to explicitly say it's okay to share this. And all of the information we talked about, including what we do share today and some of the things we're thinking about, it would apply to all of that. So, it's exciting to think about we could share purchase history at different sites. So you might be able to offer a special deal to a user who really fits your category and could be loyal. It would only be if that user approves sharing their purchase history and the things they like to buy. So in all cases, the user has to explicitly opt in. And of course, we'll look at the different regulations around the world to make sure we comply with them. You're supposed to answer.
Hi there. I was wondering the information that we take from the users. Now, are we allowed to store that in our own database? And how long are we allowed to store that? Or
So
is it temporary?
that's a really good question. So there are two actual user agreements that have to take place. So when you implement the solution, you actually put a link to your data privacy. What's it called? Data privacy. Privacy policy, thank you. So that will let the user know what your policy is with that information. So you're getting a copy of their information, and you're letting them know this is your privacy policy about it. In addition, if the user comes to your site again and logs in, you can actually refresh that information if it's been changed at PayPal. Now, you can't do that if the user then logs into PayPal and says, stop sharing information. But basically, your site defines the policy, and that's provided to the user to understand, now that they're going to have a copy of your data, what you're going to do with it.
And if you go to the PayPal Access site, you can go through the identity system, right to the identity page. If you create an application through there, you'll see that privacy policy link that when you first create things up.
During the demo, you clicked PayPal Access, and it looked like you were already logged in. It already knew who you were. So I'm wondering if there's any steps in between there usually?
Yeah, so if I wipe out my current sessions on my browser, what it's going to bump me to is just a page allowing me to log in if I haven't done so. And once you've logged in for that session, you'll be able to just go through that page very quickly, as you saw.
Okay, so then my question is, what do you do about someone phishing my PayPal account or whatever that account is that the phisher is giving and pretending to be me?
That's all on PayPal's side. So that's how the OpenID extensions and really OAuth and all that work, is that they will bump you over to the provider site so that you log in through their experience, and then what's sent back is only the information that the provider wants you to have, such as the identity information. And since it's all done through the provider site, when you create applications or grant access to someone to access your information, you'll be able to revoke that access at any given time that you want.
Hey, John, can I give a simpler answer?
Oh, absolutely.
So he had just logged in. So when he went to log in again, it had recognized that he had just logged in. But there's a timeout that kicks in. So if it had been a little while, it would have asked him to put his credentials in again. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, I understand. I think my point is that with Facebook Connect and with PayPal Access, phishers now have a much more rich data set to work with once they have someone's credentials, and that the second factor authentication becomes so much more important.
Okay.
It's a good point.
Just sing a little song to yourself while we move the microphone around the room. Yeah, to yourself, though.
So I think that question was from Denise, so I'll just follow up with this. So you're telling me that you'll actually allow developers to have access to my payment information, the stuff that you keep encrypted on your website?
No. To be clear, your payment information is never shareable. So we would never give your bank account or your credit card number, et cetera. The only things we share today are your first name, last name, or full name, which is the combined two, your phone number, your email address, your primary residence address, your time zone, your country. Wow, I'm going to get all of them. Your PayPal verification status, meaning that you're a PayPal verified user. But you give that information away. And it'll be a list of, this is your information. Do you want this merchant to see it, yes or no? So we would never give it to them. It's really us facilitating you giving that information.
So how would it work if I wanted to, as a merchant, use PayPal Access to just get the form fill part of it, but maybe use Authorize.net or somebody as my acquirer? So if I don't have the payment information.
Look, can I show them? Go ahead. Have you?
There you go.
I would rather show you the answer to that question. Yeah, let's do. Have you ever logged into TinyPay.me?
No.
Okay. You want to log in? What's your live PayPal account, and we'll show them that flow. TinyPay.me.
PayPal account.
Sorry. I don't think. There we go. Oh, he's still logged in. So again, it's not going to ask him to log in, but this is what that flow looks like. So it says, hey, Jonathan, we're going to share your full name, your email address, and are you a PayPal you're not a PayPal verified user? Dude, we're going to have a conversation afterwards.
See, I blame this on being here for 2 months.
and then you would click allow. So this is the only time that information is given then for you to pre-fill the form is that step. And TinyPay.me doesn't need your physical address or phone number, so it doesn't ask for that. But that's the process you'd go through. So basically you log in as a consumer, you see the information, click allow, and you're done, and the form is pre-filled. I hope that answered the question.
I remember when I was working at Yahoo, when I would give presentations, I'd have Google set up as my primary search engine. And the first thing I ever did when I would show them, show a presentation and show them how to change their primary search provider back to Yahoo, I attribute this to the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Hold on, let's just wait for the microphone.
Oh, we'll repeat it. Go ahead, I can hear you. I'll repeat it.
Do you mean the form itself after the user has logged in their information?
It's not over JavaScript. It's through an API call that you would make that, for example, would give you the information in your PHP session. It wouldn't make it available in JavaScript where it could be captured.
So basically what I'm doing is I'm forwarding the user over to this PayPal authorization site. They're logging in with their information, and what's coming back from the server side is what I'm pulling out for the user identity. Then I'm running it against some OpenID, just pulling out the attribute exchange elements, which happen to be their identity. I'm pulling that out in PHP in this case, and then I'm displaying that in the web form.
So it's a little bit more complicated than a cut and paste in that sense, but if you're using PHP currently, we have a drop-in, and then you can cut and paste some code to manage that for you. We're hoping to do other languages as well. And I'm sorry we didn't repeat the question like I said I would.
Mike here.
Okay.
Do you guys have a single sign-out strategy?
Is this a single sign-on strategy?
Or do we have one?
Do you have one, or is it timeout the only one?
We have the easy checkout experience, which will bypass all of that login step. So think of it like an express checkout. We could bypass the login step, so bump you right to that payment page, verifying your information.
And you'll start seeing that in January. In addition, you'll slowly start seeing this PayPal Access available on eBay properties as well. I don't have a roadmap I can share today, but that's the plan for us. I think we're focusing much more on the merchants who either sell on eBay or have their stores that use PayPal. We want to provide this as a sign-on capability for any of them. But I don't suggest that one day this would make a full single sign-on solution. This is really just for commerce.
We have a question via Twitter. How will this compare with Facebook payments? Is there collaboration between the two?
So today there's not a direct collaboration between them. We are a huge partner of Facebook and have a lot of people use PayPal to buy credits on Facebook, and we think that's a great solution. So I think we'd love to work with them in terms of allowing our commerce identity to tie into their social aspects. But we don't have anything to talk about that today.
And when you let me just touch on one other thing about Facebook is that when you have, since Facebook is such this large social structure, we see them and us working as a kind of a marriage. We're really not competing against them in this space. We're trying to work with them and really just build a better experience for consumers, for merchants.
Hi, I just wanted to know what the workflow is currently for mobile application developers, Android, iPhone.
Oh, so our current application that we have out today, it's we support OAuth 2.0, which we feel like is a lot easier for a mobile flow. The experience I just showed you is the same. It's optimized for a smartphone experience, but it's not a great experience for the phone today, and it is a mobile web application. It's not native. So we're definitely going to enhance it in terms of allowing the mobile number and PIN for PayPal and building a better user experience. But beyond that, we're actually, again, one of the reasons we put the link to the survey is we want to make sure we understand your priorities for how we need to change the product.
So I think you are going to pass the address information to the merchant so that the users don't have to fill in the address information. I think that's great. But do you verify the address before you pass it over, or how deep you verify the user data before you pass over to the merchants?
How deep we've verified the user data has to do with that PayPal verified status. It's actually a pretty complex thing because how we verify users differs from country to country, and we're in 190 different countries. But in general, we have verified the information that you get across the board. Typically, the verification process for us means that we've verified a bank account, and therefore we know the person is who they say they are. But there's various different processes we use on the back end. The interesting thing is it costs us a lot of money to actually verify these users and the data sources that we have. So for us, we think there's value in us sharing that for free. But it's a little bit more complex in terms of, do we know that every single line item has been verified versus we know with great surety that some of this information was factual and we feel pretty confident about it. I think we're level 3 and maybe hoping to get to level 2 in the future with that information.
For the NIST levels? Mm-hmm. I think, what is it, level 1 going up to level 3?
Yeah. I don't have that exact answer, but we'll get that to you guys.
You started talking a little about consumer controls in terms of what information to share. One of them was purchase history. How much granularity is that going to be? Are they going to share their entire purchase history, something just on that site, other merchant categories, or how much control will the consumers have over that?
You want to check?
That's a great question. So today we don't give you too granular controls as a user, but we do show you exactly what you would share. And we're actually working directly with some user groups to figure out what is it they would be comfortable in sharing. In general, we don't want to share, here are the places somebody shopped and here's how much they spent, etc. And we don't think consumers would want to share that. In reality, it's their information. But in terms of the categories of items that they like to buy, we have a lot of information about that might be interesting to share. Maybe how often they purchase in certain categories. And then, we actually have a lot of information such as your shoe size and your favorite colors and stuff like that. Wouldn't it be nice when you search for something on a site, it would only show you things that were in your size, or it would help, tailor the search results to be a little bit more personal for you. That's the goal, but we're really concerned about making sure that consumers know what they're sharing when they click the button and they feel comfortable with it. So we haven't rolled out that capability yet, and we're still doing research to make sure we're doing the right thing for consumers.
Thank you. I have a little bit of a loaded question on top of this. It's not directly connected, but you just started speaking about sharing data, sharing category information. So one challenge we have in commerce in general is that category trees are not normalized, right? So we quickly start speaking about unstructured data. So when you start about sharing those information, is there a concept somewhere else in X.commerce that speaks about normalizing information? Do you have any comment on that?
So normalizing catalogs is extremely complicated, and I don't want to give you a long answer for it. We do a pretty extensive catalog for eBay Inc., and it's easy for us to put our data in that structure, and it's available and accessible by developers, so we're looking at that strongly. We also have a pretty strong engine in eBay in that you don't enter UPC codes when you start selling things on eBay. You list a description. And we have a pretty strong engine that will look at that description and get as close as possible to the actual item. So we're hoping to reuse that to make it easy for people to accept this data. Because in the end, it is unstructured. But it's a tough problem. We're going to work our way through it. Any other questions before we close things up?
Great, everyone. Thank you for coming and appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks a lot.